got to find the guy in the back of the turn. We're going to be busy for a minute.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969.
That's one.
July 20th, 1969. The world watched in awe as Neil Armstrong took that giant leap for mankind. For many, it was humanity's proudest moment. Proof that with determination, we could reach beyond our planet. But for millions of others, that moment wasn't real. It was a show, a performance, a carefully staged illusion designed to trick the world. Why do so many people, even today, believe the moon landing was fake? To understand why people doubt the moon landing, we have to go back to the 1960s. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in the Cold War. Two superpowers fighting for dominance not only on Earth, but also in space. The Soviets had already shocked the world with Sputnik, the first satellite in orbit. They sent the first human, Yuri Gagarin, into space. They were winning the space race. For America, landing on the moon wasn't just about science. It was about pride, about power, about proving superiority. And that's where the conspiracy theories begin. To skeptics, the US had the strongest motive to fake the landing. If they couldn't beat the Soviets fairly, why not stage the victory? Over the years, several claims have fueled the belief that Apollo 11 was a hoax. The shadows and lighting. In the moon landing footage, skeptics point to strange shadows. Some objects seem lit from multiple directions, as if artificial lights were used. To them, the moon landing looks less like space and more like a Hollywood set. The waving flag. When astronauts planted the American flag, it appeared to ripple, like it was blowing in the wind. But there's no wind on the moon. So how could that happen? The missing stars. The sky in the photos is completely black. No stars, no constellations. For conspiracy theorists, this is suspicious. Surely the universe should be visible in every shot. And then there's Stanley Kubrick. One of the most famous theories is that the filmmaker secretly directed the moon landing footage. His film, 2001, A Space Odyssey, looked so realistic that many believe NASA hired him to recreate the moon on Earth. Each of these claims has been repeated for decades. But why do people find them so convincing? It's not just about shadows and flags. It's about trust. The 1960s were a time of political turmoil. Governments were keeping secrets. From the Vietnam War to intelligence operations, people felt misled. So when NASA announced something as unbelievable as walking on the moon, doubt was almost inevitable. Humans are wired to question extraordinary events. The greater the achievement, the harder it is for some to believe. And then there's the power of storytelling. A hoax, staged in a studio hidden from the world, sounds almost more dramatic than the truth. It feeds our love of mystery, of uncovering hidden truths. For many, believing in the conspiracy is not about science. It's about mistrust, identity, and the comfort of belonging to a group that knows the truth. Of course, scientists and engineers have answered these claims. The shadows. On the moon, the uneven surface and strong sunlight create unusual shadows. They don't need studio lights, just lunar physics. The flag. It wasn't rippling from wind. The flagpole had a crossbar, and when astronauts twisted it into the ground, the fabric shook, appearing to wave. The missing stars. The cameras were set for bright lunar surfaces. Stars were simply too dim to appear in the photos. Kubrick's film set. While fun to imagine, the technology of the time wasn't advanced enough to fake the landing convincingly. Ironically, faking it on Earth would have been harder than actually going to the moon. Still, despite all this evidence, doubts remain. So why, more than 50 years later, do people still believe the moon landing was faked? Partly, it's because conspiracy theories never die, they evolve. The internet gave them new life. YouTube, forums, and documentaries spread claims faster than ever. And partly, it's because the moon landing is so monumental that it almost feels unreal. A tiny capsule, fragile men in bulky suits, traveling 250,000 miles through space, and then walking on another world. It's the kind of story that sounds impossible, until you see it. And even then, some will always doubt. Maybe that's the real lesson. The moon landing wasn't just about rockets or astronauts. It was about belief, about what we choose to trust and what we choose to question. For some, it will always be a triumph of science. For others, it will always be the greatest hoax in history. And perhaps that tension is what keeps the story alive.